What is up, everybody? We haven't had these sessions in a minute, but crowd requested. We've got a crowd favorite here. We've got Frank from Salesforge and Mailforge, an absolutely smashing product in the market right now. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you have heard of the product. But Frank, super excited to do this.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, you were the one that initiated it on LinkedIn, and I think somebody just commented you should speak to Frank, and I was like, sure, why not?
Yeah, why not? So the backstory of this is I put a post out a few weeks ago saying that, hey, I think there's enough money to be made in the space. It's always good when competitors catch up and just jam. Yeah. I think that the world will learn better and it'll be a better place. So I think with that being said, let's jump into it, man. You came into the scene a few months / a year ago, and you guys are absolutely crushing it. What do you think makes people come over to you guys from any other tool?
I mean, just like people come, I think, over to your tool, and I think a bunch of new generation tools that are out there, right? So I think there's a lot of legacy tools that are in the space. Whether, I'm not going to name them essentially, but there's a bunch of them, you probably know them as well, that believe, for example, that deliverability is the customer's problem, essentially, right? So they believe that's the engineering problem, and so naturally that is wrong. And typically the people that face this problem is naturally a bunch of sales teams or agencies, etc. Most companies don't have deliverability experts. If you go to an IT team, right, they don't give monkeys about your problem in sales. They're very expensive engineers and they have to ship product, right? So it's not really top of their mind, and I totally get that. And of course, you're probably seeing that Google is naturally tightening up their belts. I used to work at Google, funny enough. Now I'm on the other side of the coin, trying to figure out how to land in Gmail and all that stuff. So yeah, and I mean, I think it's just getting tougher in the space, right? Back in the days, you could be blasting a bunch of emails from your primary domains. These days, you can't do that anymore. So that's one issue that needs to be solved. There's a bunch of other issues naturally that need to be solved, but I think where the more complicated it gets, the more there's a need for new gen softwares. Absolutely, like yours, right. Mine, a bunch of others, whatever, to solve the problem. And yeah, that's why I'm a big fan of Smartlead myself, and a bunch of other
tools in the market as well. Yeah, well, it's a busy space, and like I said, when you make noise in a busy space, there's a lot of respect. Like I know how tough it was to grab attention, and the fact that you're doing that as well is a lot of respect for you, right? And I think a lot of people want to learn from that. So because agencies who we all serve, right, in our products are in a very crowded market. So what are some things people can do with outbound lead gen or maybe LinkedIn branding, because you've done a fabulous job at that, to attract that pull in the crowded market?
I think there's a lot of there's a lot of software out there, but typically when people do, let's say, business with us, they're not just doing business. They're not just buying the software; they're also renting the team, essentially, right? So got it. Right, so they're making a bet on that particular founding team. They're making a bet on you, Vaibhav, right? That you're gonna, make them $1 million, etc. Yeah. They're making that bet, right? And because it's not just, hey, here's my software, buy it, and then that's it, right? We're on, you and me, we're on WhatsApp, we're talking to people, LinkedIn, trying to help, with other topics, and I think people appreciate that a lot because, there's no, with other tools, you can't even speak to the founders. They don't want to speak to customers, right? So there's also that kind of interesting element to, people build software for, their ICP, but they don't want to speak to their ICP. I find that odd. There's a lot of software that's out there like that. Yeah. And founders want to sort of distance themselves, away by, having the support team or whatever, account managers, etc., and don't necessarily speak to those. I've been in sales for over a decade. In my previous gig, I led a sales team of 50, and then, I just had enough with looking at all the software that's out there. And I believe the problem, generally why companies don't make more money essentially, is the software is pretty out of date. Versus, the new rules of the engagement, and then of course, naturally there's new software popping up. Funny enough, when we were building our software, we didn't even know that you exist by now.
Whoops, so, I'll tell my team to do a better job.
That was a long time ago, of course, but and I was like, oh, there's the Smartlead guys. So it's quite interesting that that you understand that, okay, we're all trying to solve, let's call it, similar problems. I wouldn't say the same problems, but similar problem. But ultimately, we're all trying to make more money for the agencies or businesses, whatever out there. And I think that's exciting, right? So if you are, when you're actually helping businesses make more money, I think that's just an exciting space to be in. Doesn't matter what you do, email, LinkedIn, etc. And so yeah, of course there's a tool, but of course you need to be in the medium where your ICPs are, whether that's Facebook groups. You know how noisy that is. Right now it seems like a lot of folks are on LinkedIn. There's also naturally a lot of folks on Twitter, but you need to be engaging with people wherever they are.
100%.
And people actually look at your profile. You've done a ton of stuff. They look at my profile. I've done a lot of stuff, and people are genuinely, they make a bet based on what you've been doing in this space and how 100%. You talk about items. And I know that you, for example, you have a bunch of cool content, a very technical content that you just put out on LinkedIn or God knows wherever, YouTube and stuff like that. People love that stuff because they're just genuinely curious. Even whether they're going to put that into
use or not is a different story.
Business, that's another question. But they'd be like, oh, I really love this technical stuff. Whereas I don't go into technicalities. I kind of try to make it kind of more basic because there's a bunch of unsavvy people out there. So
100%.
This is maybe where everybody kind of does a different thing. Where maybe going more unsavvy, you're like more the savvy crowd, and the market is humongous, right? So
no, that's fair. I think you've in just naturally having this conversation, you've just nailed a very important piece, which is which is why I keep saying we're having this conversation. It's not because we're competing. We're all collaborating because you're selling to a very different set of people that I'm selling to. And I've got a very different messaging that you've got, right? And everyone's going to make money in the end. And it's just a matter of how you know who to sell to, which is what you've done a really good job at. Is like, hey, I'm selling to this set of people. I will eventually maybe sell to our customers, right? And that's natural competition, right? But you clearly have a vision tunnel on who you're trying to attract as a user base with whatever you're trying to do. And that's working really, really well for you. So that's fabulous. On the note of, you raised this a few points, which is getting into the primary folder, things are changing, things are getting difficult. What are some patterns or trends that you have recognized with your user base, or just because you have two incredible tools, you've got Salesforge and Mailforge, right? I want to jump into Mailforge as well. What are some interesting things that you've started to see on a data perspective that you think everyone watching this would want to know?
So you're probably seeing that, and I'm seeing that naturally. Outlook and Gmail will be tightening their belts. I predict, based on intel that I'm getting from Google and a few other places, that it's going to get tougher. That presents in itself ultimately a big opportunity for softwares like ours and yours. And that's why I predict that it will be just very interesting to see how the world of just generally cold email will shift over the next couple of years. There's a bit of a dilemma for Gmail and Outlook. There's just more emails in the world every day, billions of emails, right, circulating, etc. That's a huge problem, and of course they're trying to filter, but the emails they're trying to filter are the ones where it's either malicious content, ransomware, all that stuff, right? There's a lot of bad stuff in the ecosystem, but that also impacts the good guys. But guess what? Google doesn't care about the good guys because it's not their bread and butter, like for you and me, to ensure you land in the primary, right? For Google, if you have problems in cold email, they expect that you're gonna plow a ton more cash into Google Ads, right? So. That's why they don't care about. Whereas for us, right, for the both of us, we care that people still make money via outbound, right? So for now, it's email. It could be whatever in the future. So I mean.
Is there anything that you want to sort of any insights you can so maybe I'll jump in a bit, right? So what we've tended to discover is a rather interesting perspective between when someone starts getting their accounts getting disconnected. It starts happening often. It's usually like a preamble to the fact that their account might get blocked sometime soon, right? It was a very interesting pattern that we picked up, right? So it's like, hey, it got disconnected once, they reconnected, disconnect again, reconnect twice, and then boom, the third time we know that it's going to get blocked. So now we've learned some protocols in place saying that, all right, if you're going to have your accounts disconnected, good chance that your spam rate's really high, right? Good chance your bounce rate's really high, and a good chance that you're just not targeting the right person, and a very good chance that you're oversending. Either it's 80, 90, 100 emails, or you might be sending 20, 30 emails, but you might be sending them in 2-minute gaps, right? So all of these are like, data pieces that we tended to pick up that were maybe correlation versus causation, I don't know, but that's what we were trying to see. So now a lot of the push we're trying to take towards customers is like, take slow, 35 to 50 is what you want to aim for, do a bit of warm up, and the other piece is explore other tools, kind of where Mailforge comes in, and we've actively pushed Mailforge as well as an SMTP third-party platform to see if it makes sense for sending out messages and so on and so forth. So maybe this is a good segue onto Mailforge. Explain that to us. What exactly does Mailforge do, and why are people coming to you with that? Versus there's competition. We know there's even competition in that space as well.
Yeah,
and there's more of these like little tools popping up. But why do you think Mailforge has been a hit?
So there's a bunch of places. I think you're probably seeing also vibe. Every month there's a new
there's a new one coming up. Yeah,
Gmail essentially popping up. It's quite interesting that space. You would think that on the sending front there's a ton of players. No, on the sort of the alternatives to Gmail. I think we naturally power a bunch of softwares out there, and that's was always really the goal. They kind of provision the infrastructure for folks because naturally you have a huge cost with Gmail. Yes, you can reduce that through resellers and stuff like that, but then there's also some differences between where you buy
shared pool and all that jazz.
Yes. So we see a huge pain with Gmail, and what I'm hearing also internally, also in Google, is that potentially 2FA may become mandatory.
I think maybe you haven't got the email. I got the email just recently, July 2024. They're getting rid of app passwords, so auth is the only way to go for it. It's actually in SYC, the channel we're part of. But cool. Good insight.
Ultimately, you're seeing that just becoming tougher, and Outlook typically will follow Gmail, maybe vice versa. So then you're thinking, okay, where are people gonna be building out the infrastructure and stuff like that, and of course there's a bunch of solutions out there. We're also kind of provisioned that. We decided to build Mailforge prior to the February announcement and a few other things. So we knew we were going to be building that because naturally the infrastructure is just part of the puzzle, right? So I guess the fact that you can just do it in about 5 minutes is the USP.
The value
versus kind of doing it for hours. Some people just don't care about the cost, but the fact that you can do it very fast. So, and I think it's been a hit because sometimes people use, let's say, your software and they use a bunch of other softwares, and they just need an infrastructure that can plug into a bunch of places very fast.
Makes sense.
You can assemble that. And the one thing that we've been told as well is the fact that, again, there's a team behind the infrastructure, or people know what they're talking about, because it's not like with Gmail and Outlook you can talk to people and kind of figure out what's happening here. So we're seeing actually a lot of kind of things,
questions, technical
why things are happening, the reason why they're happening, and the fact that a user or an agency can talk to somebody about it. And we all know that we're talking about cold email, and we all know we're trying to land in the primary, and how do you solve that, right? So that's why people come to our chat, they may come to Smartlead chat, and they're just trying to solve their problem, whatever the problem is. And people appreciate that. So they do look, at this as an extension of their
own team
agency. That's something that they don't necessarily pay for, right? But we pay, expensive engineers or tech support people to ensure that they answer very fast and they talk about it, they try to resolve that, etc. Not all the things are in our control, especially when we look at their copy.
Let's not go into that.
When people tell me, Frank, my copy is amazing, and I say, please show it to me. And then you look at the copy, and I'm just, sometimes I don't know how to even
say it nicely.
It's really nice to do that. It sucks. There's a lot of people, and the weirdest thing is that especially when the person says that they know what they're doing, and they say, yes, I know what syntax means, and I know what this means, and then you end up after 2 weeks talking about these silly things, like really silly. And then no wonder, and then we just essentially, yes, we are wasting our time talking to these people, but I guess what, they're paying money, so I guess we
it's absolutely fair. Like, trust me, I think if we go off record and you and me sit down and talk about the some of the questions that are asked, you're not going to have a lot of laughs together, because same situation where someone's like, I'm the best email copywriter in the world. I'm like, bro, have you seen what you've written over here? Like, I will mark this as spam immediately. What the hell's wrong with you? How are you charging people money for this? But it is what it is. Fair enough. But you've said this a few times, which I think is a very interesting aspect for people to take away, because we built our business on support, and it looks like you've done the same thing, right? You've built your business on support. You've this great concept of you're an extension of your own team, because people get that direct access, right? This is for everyone watching as well, right? Is you can see the same concept. Like, we hit the market and we use that as a USP. These guys have also hit the market same time, whatever it is, and also use that as a USP. Nothing unique. We're not doing anything specific. We're just saying we're going to be accessible as a team and help you out. So maybe if you acquire customers, don't listen to the typical VC crap that you see there and, try the whole distance from the customer. No, be on the call, speak to them every day, be available, and honestly, it'll make the biggest difference. Because I see Frank on the same WhatsApp groups that I'm part of, and how active he is, right? Even when people do stupid call outs, right? Or try like pin him on the floor and they pin me on the floor, he handles it like an absolute champ, right? And I think that's how it should be. And I've had the same thing. People call me out on random stuff. I'm like, look, I'll speak to you and then try to sort this out. So that's awesome. If you were to go ahead and give people any like 3 tips, right? Any sort of 3 things to be successful in lead gen for the next 8 months, I think that's left in the year. What do you think you can tell them?
Good question. Because it's hard to predict. It's hard to predict what because the world is, just things are changing.
Of course, things change so much. Yeah.
So this is where I'm just being honest. I'll tell you something, and that's
it'll change. Yeah, it'll change by the time we actually jump off the call. Yeah. So maybe I'll keep it fair.
Sending us another email saying the rules have changed again, and then whatever.
So let's just say for this quarter, right? So people who want to hit their targets this quarter, there's 2 months left, right? What are things you think they should focus on to help them hit those targets? Whether it's do you think they need to be better in personalization, better in maybe using Salesforge or Mailforge? What do you think people should be doing?
So it's not. I don't think it's about tooling, right? It doesn't matter. I think Smartlead versus Salesforge, whatever, other bunch of tools. I think what does matter is it kind of boils down to basics. So we discussed, for example, the copy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, send it to even a friend of yours or another colleague. Like, would you mark it as spam or not? Like, people say they know what they're talking about, but like show it to maybe a few people, and then kind of basics. Like, people don't even do basics. So if you don't know how to do basics, totally fine. Pay some money to Clay, Salesforge, whatever the tool is. But there's also a lot of people. Maybe speak to other agencies. So I think one of the things that I would really recommend, just like we are in the WhatsApp group, what I typically do on a weekly basis, I just schedule what I call networking meetings with a bunch of people. There's no agenda and nothing. And I would do that with other agencies. So on a weekly basis, I would schedule 2 chats with agencies that, again, they're competitors. They also do calling or whatever. But you're essentially bouncing off ideas, trying to figure out where the world is moving, trying to speak about the tech that should be used and blah, 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 right? So if you're going to be doing that, I believe you're going to be a lot more successful as an agency. If you look at all the big agencies out there that send millions of emails out there, they have a network, right? They bounce off ideas. They have a network. They trying to triangulate what is the best thing to do, because nobody has really the answers. It's not like Gmail or Outlook and a bunch of these softwares like exactly telling you where the success lies. You kind of need to figure this out and run a bunch of tests. Then so maybe that networking is one. I know people don't say that, but that's very heavily underestimated. From my perspective, the other one would be running a bunch of tests. So what I see is people just create one huge campaign and off they go. They don't do testing as much as like you would do, let's say, in Google Ads or Facebook Ads, where you have 100 campaigns. Each campaign has like 5K, whatever. Like, they don't do that. Like, people don't do that sort of testing, and then they maybe will run a campaign with 100 leads. It's like, dude, there's no statistical significance to what you're doing. You may as well just throw everything in one campaign. So I don't see people doing large-scale experiments, tests, trying to figure out which segments work, which ICPs work, in which market states, whatever is working. They don't do that. I bet they don't do that much in Smartlead. They don't do that much in Salesforge, etc. People just have one campaign, two campaigns. That's all. Yeah. But really, if you ask the marketing people that run Google Ads campaigns, where they're burning a ton of cash, they'll be trying to figure out that segment. You should do that also on outbound. I don't understand 100%. Why people don't do that. And then people say that something is working or not, but you haven't tested like a lot at all. What I'm saying, like again, for example, what I say, I'm on a call with the prospect, I would say something along the lines of, yes, maybe AI sounds like an amazing idea, but what if Spintax performs much better because you have an irresistible offer, and that offers are fantastic, will beat the AI any day of the week. So why don't you run two campaigns? For example, one with the AI, one without the AI. Why don't you run a campaign, West Coast, East Coast campaign? I don't know, all of these differences, and there's a lot to learn. And whatever works, you just double down on kind of 10x, find more leads, etc. Right? But those learnings so again, just like on the networking front, you get learnings with the other agencies, but the learnings that you can get quickly is by testing a ton of stuff.
100%.
And I think people just don't do that enough on the outbound. So I call that rapid testing, but essentially you need a ton of leads, but different segments, testing all of them, and then figuring out what works. And then if that segment works really well, you just find more leads from that segment.
That is nailed.
And then I don't know what should be the third thing, but
I think the second thing, you nailed it like into two things, which is it's effectively micro testing and then also active segmentation, right? Like it's the second one was a loaded one for sure, and I'm absolutely in alignment with you. Yeah, I think the people who do really well on our product are the ones, if you look into their accounts, you'll see like they've got like 1,000 leads, right? And they're like testing 100 different things, and then they're doubling down. And then you have the other person who'll dump like 20,000 leads into one campaign, two A/B tests, and they're like, I've done all the work. So outbound, just like marketing, like you said, perfect, makes sense, makes absolutely
maybe the
sense.
last thing, I know it's kind of sounds very basic, but naturally most people will agree that if you doing multi-channel, your conversion rate will be significantly higher.
Yes.
And I understand that a lot of us are just doing email, but guess what? Once you apply, I don't know, another channel, doesn't matter what that is, you will convert a lot more. That's because the inbox is a bomb for some people. They're more maybe susceptible on LinkedIn, etc. But you need to kind of think more holistically, and I think the smartest agencies actually do think more holistically. Understand that cold email scales really nicely. There's process structure, there's specific problems. They can they can generate pipeline also via LinkedIn. Some agencies then say, okay, I'm going to hire a few SDRs just to cold call at scale using parallel, whatever they're doing. So they're thinking bigger when it comes to their clients. And I think by thinking bigger beyond essentially cold email, when it comes to, if you're an agency for your clients, of being able to provision that service, let's say LinkedIn or whatever, cold calling, if you don't know how to do that, you don't have the manpower, guess what? There's a partner up with another agency that is doing cold calling, and just work together. And by, again, working together, just like, we believe working in Smartlead or a bunch of other softwares, like playing essentially friendly in the space, you're actually going to make more money.
100%.
Than being isolated versus other agencies. So that's also my take on, you should work with others. It doesn't matter whether you compete or not, or whether they have a service. But if you solve the problem or you generate more pipeline for your customer, they will come to you because guess what? You were the one that sort of coordinated maybe this whole thing around, okay, I'll do cold email, and then that agency that are pulling in, they're going to do cold calling for you. It's more of a consultative approach rather than let me run for you some campaigns and see how it goes.
Like Matt, like I don't add anything. I think you've nailed it, right? It's collaborative over competitive. I think what you do with your you said you catch up with agencies and get some insights. Honestly, fabulous. I think people get too locked into I want to compete and they don't share. What you're doing is honestly fabulous. Awesome. This is great. I know we're 24 minutes in, and I want to be very particular of time. So if people want to find you, Frank, I know they're probably watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube, but if they want to get in touch with you, they want to learn a bit more about you or what you're doing, where can they find you? What's the best place?
LinkedIn, the typical.
All right.
Space,
got it. Frank often shares how booked his calendars are. So if you want to go ahead and lock him in, you probably want to do that in advance. But everyone, thank you so much for listening in so far. Frankie, thank you so much for joining all the way from Lithuania. nothing but the best for you, Salesforge and the Mailforge team. I'm very excited to see how and where you take this. And also, congrats on the funding. I did not get to say that early on, so congratulations on the funding. I think that's massive for you guys. But everyone, we'll see you all in the next episode. We'll get someone else as a surprise guest. This is fucking, I don't know what this is. We'll see you all later. Have a cheers. Have a good day, all. Cheers. Bye.
Bye, guys.